Annette from the Woolen Needle. I want to talk today about a technique that I have found very useful in all of our projects that we do. It's when we do blanket stitching, there's a way to lock your stitch so when you're doing curves and corners, they don't roll in off the top. And I did a sample here that shows a couple things, a couple problems. One, these stitches are too far apart, and what happens is this thread wants to roll in on the top, so you don't get a nice, neat, crisp edge. So there's two factors there. It's too big of stitches and too far apart. But I'm going to show you a locking stitch that will, when you're stitching curves, when you're stitching corners, that will help lock that in. I call it just a locking stitch. So one, when you come up through your wool, you need to think about your thread has to lay between the edge of your piece you're appliquing on and where your needle comes through. So you don't want to be real tight coming up right up against that applique piece. So then I'm going to take a beginning stitch, and because this whole thing is a curve, I'm going to lock almost every stitch, if not every other stitch. So the next one is coming here, and I'm coming out a little bit away, but instead of doing the typical blanket stitch, I take my thread, wrap it counterclockwise, and then just kind of pull my thread through, and that puts an extra little lock right there, so it's not going to roll in. Now, of course, this is smaller stitches also, so they lock in place and they don't pull in on top. Again, you're wrapping, here's your thread, I wrap counterclockwise, pull my needle through, and each one of those stitches has a little locking stitch right there, which really is nice to keep from rolling in. Again, wrap it, pull it through, and it's not going to roll in on you. So that, I'm going to just snip this off and show you. Well, here's another technique that is kind of fun. When you're knotting your thread, if you take your needle, lay your thread in front of it, and hold it with your thumb and finger, wrap the thread, keep that little wrap in your fingers and pull it down, and you have a knot at the end of your tail, which is kind of fun. Another place that these locking stitches is really handy is on a corner, because again, you get this effect if you're going around a corner and put a blanket stitch in. So we'll put a couple blanket stitches in, and I'm doing a straight edge, so I don't need to do a locking stitch. And when I go towards corners, I usually shorten my stitches just a hair as I'm headed into that corner. Now here on the corner, I'm going to pull my needle up like this, lock that stitch in again. And that locks it in place, so now I'm ready to go on around the corner, and that thread is not going to roll off that corner. And then just away you go again. So that holds that in place out at this corner. Same effect out here on the outside edge. Lock that corner when you do your blanket stitch on your outside edge. Lock it. You can even lock it twice if you choose to, but it helps hold those threads in place when you're going around corners, going around circles, going around arches. So I might do a couple stitches without locks, but as soon as that your direction changes with some arch, then I would put a locking stitch in like here, and that holds them in place. Hope that helps you do your stitching, and have fun stitching.